The woman behind me thought that DRS stood for doctors, and a friend of mine kept talking about how well Surrey were doing. The queues for the ice cream and the fish and chips were massive, whereas the queues for the booze just not so much. And we saw our first ever legal back-to-back over in professional cricket, and it was one player who was ordered to do so by her wife. Maybe ordered's the wrong word. Sorry, Marazan, if you resent that remark. These are the kinds of things I saw in my first ever 100 game. I suppose anyone's first ever 100 game, come to think of it. And you've got to remember that I grew up watching cricket at the MCG and going to Shield games where you could just hear the echoes of the players swearing at each other on the ground, and empty domestic stadiums who had long since given up on domestic cricket. MCG with 300 people in it watching professional athletes play. Not to mention the international stuff of drunken fans getting thrown out of the ground, Shane Warne having to come out and stop the crowd from throwing golf balls at someone, and the first test match I ever went to, a Pakistani player went to pick the ball up from the fence, and an Australian fan hit him in the head with a flag. I mean, this first 100 game couldn't have been much more removed from that in almost every way. It's a new format, it's a new world, but if you're a child and you're at this game and it was your first game, you would have had a completely different experience than I did when I first went and watched cricket. And I did take my family to this game. It was my 1-year-old daughter's first professional game of cricket. She has seen me bowl a couple of bad leg spinners before. And generally we don't take our younger family to the cricket that much because it's just hard. The UK grounds are not set up for young families to come in. They're actually kind of set up to stop it at certain places. We actually realized this when my wife went to the MCG a couple of years ago for a Boxing Day test, and as she rolled up with her stroller, they were like, well, this is where you fold the stroller, and over here, this is where the family changing toilets are. A completely different world. That's not really how it works in the UK. If you go to an international game, like my wife tried, she wasn't allowed to take a stroller into Edgbaston at one stage. I had to call people to help out. But even at county games, people just sort of look over and tut-tut. It never feels like a comfortable environment taking a young family to a cricket game in the UK. Whether it's the facilities or the fans or the people on the gate, it just feels like everything's set up not for you to enjoy it. And so last night was probably the first time that I've been in an English cricket ground as a family and felt comfortable. But it was a lot more than that because I've traveled around the world. I've seen some incredible fan experiences when it comes to cricket. I remember going to a Sydney Thunder game and just so many kids were there. It felt like there was like no adults on duty that day. You know, I went to a game at the Wanderers a couple of years ago, which just felt like South Africa was transforming in front of me in this one-day international. Afghanistan's first one-day World Cup game with the Bangladeshi fans, just an incredible, joyous atmosphere. My first IPL game was at Wankhede, and it's a massive cricket extravaganza. Not to mention some just brilliant test crowds over the years, like a fifth day at Lord's when everyone was lining up to see Sachin. But this just felt completely different. For me and for my wife and for our family, everyone felt a lot more comfortable. I mean, obviously, you know, we had young children, so things still went on. My daughter did not stop yapping pretty much throughout the entire game, but people seemed to find that cute rather than annoying. Even when the concert was played in the break of innings, when she screamed pretty much all the way through one of the songs. My youngest son was obsessing quite loudly over every left arm bowler and every wrist spinner because that's his jam. And also when a catch was missed, he very proudly said, I would have taken that, even though he was completely incorrect and there's no way he would have taken that catch. My oldest son was a bit confused with the new scoring system, only because he's only just learnt the old scoring system, and he doesn't want to learn a whole new thing. But I think overall it was just that we were surrounded by cricket families, of younger cricket families. There were mums bringing their teenagers, but there was also a lot of families bringing younger children like ours, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. And so this was a completely different environment than anything that I'm used to in cricket. And it still felt very much like cricket. Now, obviously some of the changes for the 100 are a bit bizarre. But to be honest, almost every time in cricket, and I'm allowed to say this as a cricket historian, almost every time we change something in cricket, we do it a little bit bizarre. And some of the changes that the 100 have done will probably stick around, and a few others will be happily buried. Hello, Super Sub. But on a very basic level, if someone hit a boundary, people were excited. When the zing bails went off, people were excited. When we were waiting and looking at the big screen to see if something was out, people were excited. It was normal cricket, more or less. And I understand it won't be real cricket for some people, but those sorts of people are kind of perpetually angry anyway. I grew up playing backyard cricket and indoor cricket. And on TV, when they would show it, I would watch beach cricket. Cricket for me is a much wider canvas than it is for anyone else. If you think cricket is only played on a turf wicket with whites, with red ball, It's just not. That isn't what our sport is. It's never what our sport has been. Our sport has gone into alleyways, into backyards, into maidans. It goes wherever it has to, and it adapts and it changes. And maybe you're using a proper leather cricket ball. Maybe you're using a ball made of plastic bags that has been melted by someone, or a bunch of rubber bands. It doesn't matter. Cricket is so many things. Let's not be gatekeepers. Let's allow people to find cricket in any format they can. Let's push and grow the game. It doesn't mean we can't make fun of the 100 for being stupid, because we can. That's the great thing. Cricket gives us so much to talk about almost all the time. It doesn't matter to me if you only like cricket because you can get drunk in the sun with your friends, or because you think the vests look cool, or only when India versus Pakistan are playing. It matters to me that you like cricket. That is the idea, to get as many people in the world watching and playing and supporting cricket. And one of the great things about the IPL that probably isn't talked about enough is just how many extra women got involved with watching cricket, and hopefully in the future playing cricket, because they watched it on the IPL. It was packaged differently. It was sold to them. That's kind of how last night felt. The Big Bash was very similar to that. And if the 100 only succeeds in one thing, and it's getting more women interested in cricket in the UK, it's already done a massive job. And yeah, obviously with 100 there are a lot of gimmicks. Let me tell you though about gimmicks in cricket. In the 1850s, the first time an England team came all the way to Australia to play games, they were so worried about the crowd, especially during the lunch break, that they actually dropped a hot air balloon into the ground. That was in the 1850s. We've been using gimmicks to try and keep people involved in cricket the whole time. Almost everyone who's ever administrated cricket has been really nervous that no one likes cricket. But you know what? But here's the other thing. My kids, they really like fireworks, music, and it turns out cricket cards. I would say that my kids' biggest interest so far in cricket, outside of actually playing in the backyard, has been the moment that Topps sent us the box of cricket cards, and they got to go through them. In fact, my son sleeps with one of the cards in his bed. It's possible that it's not completely cricket related, the reason that he sleeps with it in his bed. It might have something to do with the player's name, but that's okay too. And my other son now is only obsessed with cricketers who he has the cards of. He had real troubles remembering all the cricketers' names before, and now he loves them. He doesn't like Kate Cross because I know Kate Cross. He likes Kate Cross because he has a shiny card of Kate Cross. And I can understand why cricket cards and some of the other things that the 100 have tried have felt gimmicky and wrong to you. But as I said, 1850s is where all this started, and realistically it's been going on for a very long time. A lot of my friends and me got more obsessed with cricket when the Victorian cricket team changed to the Victorian Bushrangers. It was just a change of logo and a little bit of change of shirts, but we all wanted that shirt. The generation before me got into cricket because Australia was suddenly wearing canary yellow. Now, of course, a lot of our parents didn't like this. It wasn't the traditional cricket. My father wouldn't even take me to an ODI game. But through things like the Bushrangers and collecting cricket cards, which I did as a kid, I got more and more obsessed with this sport. You can't really tell someone how to fall in love with something. They're going to find the thing, so you have to give them as many options as possible to find the thing that they can fall in love with. And none of this stops the fact that everyone here knows that the 100 is a slightly odd concept designed by panicked administrators who let the game slip for generations in England, and now in one fell swoop they're trying to catch up as quickly as they can by copying the IPL, the Big Bash, and baseball. Even though baseball's kind of dying on its own separately anyway. You know, watching the ECB try and design this tournament is a bit like watching a number 11 learn to play the reverse sweep while drunk. But as horrendous as many of the ECB's choices have been for this particular tournament, cricket is still great. And there's a reason why over 250 years after it was first professional, we're still here watching it and moaning about it. And the 100 game last night, I think it gave us both options. If you just wanted to go to the ground and shout loudly, there were people doing that with beers all around them. There just happened to be more 12-year-old girls around them than usual. But if you had a cricket family, this is maybe one of the first times you really felt like this was a thing for you to be able to go into a big ground in England, watch a game, have it designed particularly for you. And as a family person, I thought the vibes were immaculate. I mean, basically, when it comes down to it, I thought last night's cricket game was something that was worth watching. The length of the over doesn't matter because we've changed that a bunch of times. The length of the game doesn't matter because we've changed that a bunch of times. And all the other stuff that's going on, we've changed most of these things in cricket now. It's just that most of us have forgotten about it. What is important that it was a game of cricket. And in this case, it felt like a celebration of the game of cricket. And yes, the ECB's marketing is probably the worst we've seen since, I don't know what, New Coke. But last night I watched a game of cricket with my family, surrounded by other families, and we saw a top quality domestic women's cricket match where a married South African pair basically won the game on their own. I mean, there's a lot to like there. The cricket actually felt the same, and everything else felt a bit alien, but also kind of wonderful. And maybe this is kind of different, because I did grow up in Melbourne where the fans would, throw piss at you and ping the opposition with golf balls. But last night felt as crickety as anything I ever watched at the MCG. But it just felt like a great environment where lots of people were welcome. And when we came home, my son wanted to talk about Sophia Egginton. I think he means Eccleston. And the next day he was still talking about what he calls the 100. I mean, basically, what was he talking about? He was talking about cricket. That's all.